In this video, I'd like to go through the range of LNBs that a technician would typically find when doing an installation. So the video is going to be a bit of a long video, but I would encourage you to watch it all the way to the end so that you guys can get a good understanding of what you might find on site. So let's deal with some of the more uncommon LNBs. I have these two here. This is a C120 flange LNB. Now when I say that, I'm referring to this flange adapter over here. Typically these would be used with a prime focus dish. So you would use this adapter screwed onto there, and then we can use those big mesh dishes in order to pick up KU band signal as opposed to C band signal. This is a quattro LNB, so it has a dedicated polarity on each of these outputs here. There's a fiber optic version of it as well, so this again needs this adapter to screw onto there, and that gets plugged into the prime focus dish with the fiber output being over here. Sticking with fiber, we have a traditional fiber optic LNB. This LNB here has got your coaxial input, but this is only to supply electricity to switch it on. It doesn't have an IF output here. The output is on this port. This is my fiber optic output over here. Now the other LNB that you would find in a fiber installation is this one here. This is a whole band LNB. So some technicians incorrectly refer to it as a wide band LNB. You can see this here is my wide band LNB, and it's got two ports there, one for vertical, low and high, and one for horizontal, low and high. This is a whole band LNB. Now you would find this on an installation that's using an ODU32 kit. So here I've got my N-type connector that runs via a piece of HF cable, and that would go through to my ODU32, which would then feed my network. Putting the fiber equipment aside, let's move over to a standard universal LNB. This is an octo LNB, and you can see octo being 8 means that there's 8 ports. But each port is a universal port, meaning that it can cater for any one of the 4 polarities on any one of the 4 on the 8 ports, all independently from another. So I can be vertical low, vertical low, vertical low, vertical low, vertical high, horizontal high. We can mix it up depending on what we need. So here I can supply 8 single decoders, or I can supply 2 mud switches with their signal that's required. This is a universal port, so just important to note that term. The next type of universal LNB we would find, let's shift over through to a quad LNB. So this, just like the octo, quad meaning 4, it's got 4 universal ports. Now what I want to do is I want to do a quick comparison between a quad and a quattro. Now a quad LNB has got 4 ports. You can see this also has 4 ports. But these are 4 universal ports, meaning that any one of the 4 polarities can be on either of these ports at any given time. Whereas with a quattro LNB, you would use this in a commercial installation to feed a commercial multi-switch. A dedicated polarity is available on these ports. When I say that, on this port here, I can only get horizontal high. On this port here, I can only get horizontal low. On this port here, I can only get vertical high, and on this port here, I can only get vertical low. It's important to note that when you're doing an alignment of this LNB, that if you are measuring a vertical low transponder, you need to plug your meter into the vertical low port, as that's what will be coming out of that. So you can see they look very similar, but they operate completely differently from one another. The next type of LNB that you would typically find is a twin LNB. Now you see a twin LNB looks very similar to a wideband LNB because it's got 2 ports. And it also looks very similar to the 2-port smart LNB with 2 output ports. But it's very important to note that this has got 2 universal ports, meaning that this one can be vertical low and this one can be vertical high. They can both be vertical high if we wanted it to be like that. So it's just important to note that each port operates independently from another. Now when connecting that up with this mud switch here, in South Africa technicians would typically take the two ports here and connect them up to vertical low and vertical high, as you can see. Vertical low and horizontal low. Now that will only give me low band signals. So if I want to pick up a free-to-air television station, for example, I'm not going to be able to pick it up because my high band is not plugged into it. So it's important to note that when you're using a mud switch like this, a far better LNB to use is the quad LNB. So I have 4 ports and I've got my 4 input ports there. You can even go so far as to using a quattro LNB when connecting it up there. But just make sure that the vertical low goes into the vertical low port, so that the port over there corresponds to the port over here. Or what you can even do is you can take my octo LNB, for example, and feed 2 mud switches off of this. So if you have 2 separate sides of the installation or 2 units, you can feed the mud switches separately. Let's move to the wide band LNB. Like I said, some technicians call the whole band LNB, or they call this one a whole band LNB. It's 2 different types of LNBs. This wide band LNB, most commonly used with SAT IP installations. It's got 2 ports. One port has got vertical written there and the other one's got horizontal written there. This vertical port will output vertical low as well as vertical high. This port here, horizontal, will output horizontal low and horizontal high. It's very important to note that I can't pick up any vertical there and I can't pick up any horizontal there. It's 2 dedicated polarities, but they stack them through 200 megahertz all the way up just to over 2.4 gigahertz. So very important. It looks like the others, but performs completely differently. The other universal LNB that you would typically find is the standard single LNB. This can cater for only one polarity on the single port at a time, but it can be anything, vertical, low, whatever you'd like it, depending on what's coming in from the decoder itself. So that deals with universal LNBs. Let's deal with SATCR LNBs. So there's 2 types here, and let's bring that mud switch back into the equation. This LNB here has got 2 ports. This is the LMX502. Now this one does not have any universal outputs, where this LNB here has got 3 SATCR, 1 universal. This one will only work with new generation decoders. It doesn't work with any of the older legacy decoders. So it's very, very, very important to understand that. Whereas this LNB has got 3 SATCR outputs here for, you can connect up 3 explorers and run extra view for it. The heartbeat will loop through these here. The same with this, the heartbeat will loop through those ports over there. The heartbeat will not loop through the universal port, so you need to use a diplexer when combining it with a previous generation decoder. It's very important when you're trying to scan for free-to-air television stations that it is connected up to the universal port. Free-to-air decoders are not compatible with SATCR technology. The same with an OVHD decoder or a Centec FreeVision decoder. It must be connected up to the universal port. Dealing with SATCR, these LNBs are all SATCR compatible. Now just very briefly with the mud switch, you can see I've got 4 unicable outputs as well as 4 universal outputs. So I would have my quad LNB feeding this, bringing the signal into this device here, and out of this device I can have my extra view installations here on SATCR. So I can connect up my 3 explorers and run them all together. They share the user bands out of these 4 ports. The heartbeat will loop through these ports here. The heartbeat will not loop through these ports here. And if I have this type of device and I have my explorers all connected up there, and I want to watch, say, Crace Cake, for example, or I want to try and pick up one of the free-to-air television stations like God TV, if I'm connecting it up to the universal port here, I must make sure that there is something plugged into vertical high and horizontal high. If I only have, say, a twin LNB plugged into vertical low and horizontal low, I'm not going to pick up any of the high band stations. So please, I can't stress that enough. You get many phone calls with people saying I'm not picking up the TV stations, but they've only connected up the low band polarity. So they need to put in a quad LNB and make sure that these 4 are connected up there. So there you have it. It's different types of LNBs that you would typically find on an installation. If you guys have got any questions or comments, or you want to run something past us, please feel free to get in touch with us. We'll do our best to help you. Have a wonderful day.